Both types of sports with Schoode and Tor. Football discussion on the internet.
On the internet. I love it. I love the falsetto at the end. I love Dan, the drywall man.
Who doesn't?
Both types of sports with Schoode and Tor. Football discussion on the internet.
That was definitely a little ballsier. Oh, Jesus Christ. I thought I'd solved this. I thought we'd fucking loop tracked ourselves out of this problem. It's both types of sports. Thank you very much for being here. Yes, we are pre-recording today because we have a very special guest. He is the mayor of Knox County. Mr. Glenn Jacobs will be joining us on the Monk's Barbecue StreamYard link. I don't know what to call it over here, Tor. But that's a big guess. For those of you who don't recognize the name, he had some success in the squared circle under the moniker of Kane, the devil's favorite demon, the big red machine, brother to the Undertaker. And I don't want to, you know me, Tor, I don't like spoiling shit for people.
Sure.
But at one point during the interview, he refers to his brother, the Undertaker. And I think Tor and I both fucking had to grab ourselves. I don't know about you, Tor. I grabbed a big handful of fat and I just pinched it so I wouldn't just pop off right there in the middle of the fucking interview. It was amazing.
There was a I would contribute a lot of the reason as to why I was not as big of a wrestling fan as I probably should have been. I checked all the boxes to be a big time wrestling fan, but I do recall seeing Kane being terrified and saying, "This is pro wrestling is too scary for young Gigantor," and I punched out.
For those people that don't listen to the Chad Duke show, Tor was too frightened of Star Wars: A New Hope to finish it. I can't even imagine what Kane with the mask and the hair and the fire and the brimstone used to do to you. But I understand that the House of Happiness, many of the bro dogs that you choose to lay your head with, they're all fucking marking out with the fact that the gentleman is going to be on the show.
How could they not? He's just a hero to so many people.
He's a big Vols fan, and of course, you host a college football podcast, so it's a good time to be a Vols fan. By the way,
oh yeah, trending upward. Yeah,
they one of the better. They do really well recruiting, and they're doing really well at recruiting in the era where it's getting more complicated to do that. So, and I know you're gonna want to bring up toward the big interesting season this year, the SEC with some newcomers coming in, correct?
Yeah, I think that, Texas and Oklahoma are going to have a huge target on their back because
some new kids on the block, some fresh new faces.
Yeah, they're great programs traditionally, but you come into the SEC, it's different than joining the Big 12. You got to play defense. You have to be solid on special teams. You have to be ready to take a lot of hits. And I don't think the SEC is ready to bend the knee to the two new guys just because one of them went to the CFP recently and the other had a couple Heisman Trophy winners back to back. So
sure.
I think they're going to get the best out of the SEC this season.
Generally, we don't do a lot of college football talk on this show, but if Mr. Mayor would like to discuss college football with us, then we are going to be complacent. And then also, the goal, Tor, is to get invited to go watch a Volunteers game on Rocky Top with the mayor. All right, remember and focus on that and stay tuned to the end of the interview to find out whether or not Tor and I are going to see the Volunteers play Alabama as guests of the mayor of Knox County. Wait and see that. Holy shit. You know how difficult it is for me to keep it together right now, big man? And also, you have potentially to spend a football weekend with me, and I know you'd rather drive off a fucking bridge.
Here's the thing. I don't know if I could make it down there for a home game because I'll get sucked up in the Vol Navy in that big boatyard where all the sailgators go.
And let's go hang out with the sailgators, please. I'll make like a circus seal. It'll be amazing.
Oh, it's just the idea of, they had one of the best field stormings in recent history where they just both the goalposts, classic football, iconic scene, throwing it into the Tennessee River. Just perfect. After doing that to Alabama, they're going to want to do it again. It was a stellar scene.
When they threw it into the Tennessee River, did they see the Mountain Man? Because they get together every time they can. All right,
I think, yeah.
Let's move along, please. I don't know why I'm okay with storming the court in basketball. Always seems so much more dangerous to me. I don't know. It's just because it's inside, but when they're like
close,
and they're ripping down the backboard, I always feel like someone's going to die doing that. But I don't know. I'm an old fuddy duddy. Plenty that of course, we did the show Monday, and then monster news broke left and right in the NFL. the big news, unfortunately, Tor, being bad news, you never want to see an injury, but JJ McCarthy blew up his knee. I guess he has a tear in his meniscus, but they're not sure as of the time of recording this if it's old or it's new, Tor. And they're going to go in there, and there's a couple of different, I guess they can trim it or they can give it the full clean out. And he's either going to miss somewhere around 6 weeks, which would be a couple weeks into the season, or he's going to miss the entire season. And that's where we're at right now. I'm sure the news will break as soon as we're done with this episode. That's the way that it always works for Tor and myself. But sometimes I don't think, I'm trying to remember what I tweeted out. I tweeted out, you never want to see a guy get injured, but when you're the Vikings, every time a quarterback gets drafted in the first round now, Tor, there's this cacophony of talking heads and fans that say, you didn't draft him in the first round to sit. Well, I don't know. I'm watching Jordan Love sign the richest contract in the history of the league, and he sat for a few years. And I know Aaron Rodgers isn't in front of Sam Darnold, but am I crazy if I think this makes things a little bit easier for the Vikings because it gives Sam Darnold some time to cook, and we know that's kind of what they want to do this year?
It kind of opens up the whole picture for the Vikings this season because it can go, all right, Sam, we'll give you 6 weeks NFL. Go ahead. And if it's going great, we're going to ride with you. And McCarthy is going to be training and practice.
Darnold got to go in. And I forgot who I heard. I've listened to so much coverage now about this. Somebody was making the point that it's not about the fact that he played well. It's about the fact that Sam Darnold got in and out of the huddle. He had mastery of the offense. He was making the right decisions. And he just looked way more comfortable at quarterback than he did for much of his time beforehand at the Meadowlands, where not many people are comfortable playing quarterback. The point being, and this is one that everyone has made, but I do feel like, what are you, 6'4", 6'5"?
A little over 6'5", yeah.
I feel like you could walk out there with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson and Aaron Jones, who obviously still has some gas left in the tank, and a good offensive line and a coach that he can scheme any receiver in the league open, and you could throw for 250 yards in the NFL. I just feel like you can do that. Sam Darnold is not raw. He's 27. He's still young enough to be, all the things you need.
Is he only 27?
He's only 27.
That's crazy.
And 57 regular season starts. I mean, he has a shitload of it is crazy. You're right. My point being is that with no pressure at all from if I go out there and fuck up, if I go out there and doink a ball off a linebacker's helmet and gets picked for 6, I got to worry about the rook coming in. I think it's better for his mental state. Gives him a time to go out there and Baker Mayfield it up.
Yeah, and after, you got to feel bad that he went and tried to Baker it before Baker did it in Carolina and then gets shipped to San Fran. Like that, from the bad Jets team to a bad Panthers team to seeing how football's actually ran in San Francisco, I could see that instilling some confidence in him for sure. Or just saying, hey, look, I can still play quarterback. If the scheme presents itself nicely, I can do this job. And it seems like he can do this job. And I think Minnesota could be an environment for him to thrive.
Boy. All right. So here's the breakdown. The doctors will decide if they need 3 things about the tear: the size, the pattern, and the location. This is according to CBS Sports HQ injury expert Marty Jemmer. But I'll tell you what, they have experts for everything now, don't they? You got the referee all the worst things in football have experts that we hear from constantly. So if it is a new tear, it needs a milder repair and that will be the recommended treatment. If the tear was recently identified, but it's been present to some degree, that is different. The clean out surgery as opposed to the trim surgery is what it's saying here. Worst case scenario as far as timelines go is a full repair of the meniscus to prevent long-term wear and tear, and that would be 3 to 4 months until mid-November at the latest. So you would assume he'd be out for the season if that took place. So
yeah, it'd just say, hey, let's just get you in the film room, and we're not going to take any risks with you. If we're still in contention in November, by the time he comes back, then you're still in contention with Sam Darnold. That's the only way you should approach it. And I mean, this is a bummer for McCarthy. I know I've been kind of rough on him, not for injury reasons. It's just been for play reasons. And right. Seeing this is unfortunate because I don't mind being proved wrong if being proved wrong means there's another exciting young quarterback in the NFL. That is a trade-off I'm perfectly comfortable with. So I'm definitely rooting for the recovery and some excitement from him.
Does this change where you draft Sam Darnold? Because you're not in my league anymore. So, and that doesn't mean the quality of your fantasy football play. I mean, physically, you're not in my league. So I'll let you in on spoiler alert on the way that I like to draft. I like going heavy wide receiver early, getting our RBs, and then unless you're getting Josh Allen, like unless you're getting a running back that's going to rush for 7, 8, 9 touchdowns, excuse me, a quarterback that's going to rush for 7, 8, 9 touchdowns and throw for 40. I really do. I drafted Phillip Rivers a lot of years, man, and I got him in the 4th round, the 5th round, the 6th round, and you make the playoffs. Tony Romo, I drafted Tony Romo a lot because he wasn't at the like people. Oh, is it Brady or Manning? People were always going for those top 3 or 4 guys early. I feel like Sam Darnold, you can sit there and just pick your studs, then also go in there, get some of those rookie pass catchers, rookie running backs that you think could have a splash that maybe in the 3rd and 4th, and then swoop around and pick a Caleb Williams or pick a Sam Darnold that are not going to be as sexy as just the top guys, the Mahomeses and the Josh Allens and the Lamar Jacksons. You could set yourself up pretty nice. I think Darnold's going to get a good opportunity here.
There were weeks last season where I was getting beat by Jared Goff, and I see Jared Goff dropping 30
on the regular,
and nobody's drafting Jared Goff, but it's a quarterback edition. See who gets hot. I don't draft quarterbacks high unless there's somebody that's just looking, that's just fallen a top 3 guy. Maybe then I'll pull the trigger, but I'm off an early running back. Also, I think it's wide receiver domination.
Me too.
And then I can figure it out. I think I'm smart enough, plugged in enough. I'll draft Pacheco. I'll draft any of these dudes. I think they're going to get their touches. If you're sitting at a 1 through 3 pick, maybe then we start dabbling with the McCaffrey situation. But other than that, I think
McCaffrey goes 1 overall. I mean, who would you put in front of McCaffrey this year? You can't put Jefferson because there's too many question marks about Darnold. Jamar? Is it Jamar?
No, last year I drafted Jefferson over McCaffrey.
Yeah, because you're an idiot. So did Hot Man Ted, and he missed the playoffs, and I was in the championship game. Let's take a look at this. I don't know if you're going to like this or not. So this is Maurice Jones-Drew's top running backs in the league. Okay.
Yeah.
And I actually, a guy like MJD, I'm not in love with him on TV, but when you're not built like Eddie George, or Derrick Henry, and you're like, you got to catch passes and it's difficult to see over the linemen and you get lost in the hole. I do kind of take their word for it more. Like I like listening to what Frank Gore has to say about running back because no one is able to play running back for 20 fucking years. And somehow that guy was able to do it. So I like listening to him talk about his position. He's got Josh Jacobs at 10, Jonathan Taylor at 9. I feel like this year, this is low for Jonathan Taylor. People are super high on him, especially with Anthony Richardson coming back in this offense, him being even further removed from his major injury. What do you think about Josh Jacobs at 10? He's a guy that I have circled in every fantasy draft I'm in.
Yeah, I've always kind of stayed away from Jacobs in fantasy for whatever reason. It always felt like someone was reaching for him, and I could never have him fall to a level that was appropriate for me. I think him in Green Bay is going to be. He could be touchdown machine within the 5, hit him on a slant, hit him on a quick wheel out of the backfield, or just pound it up the middle. Green Bay's got a really good offensive line and really good guards also. Taylor scares me tremendously, though, because I don't think Anthony Richardson is going to be lighting it up through the air. So it's going to be a lot of stacked and loaded boxes, which, he thrived against in college and then that 1 year in the NFL, but we're a couple years removed from that.
All right, so we got your boy Bijan Robinson in year 2 at 8, and then Gibbs in Detroit. He's hurt, right? Did he just get dinged up?
Gibbs, I think, put out a statement about his hamstring being not serious.
Okay, well, that's good. They said the same thing about Treylon Burks. It was just cramping, if you're following along with that. Thank God no one could see him getting dinged hurt. I heard people today on the NFL Network saying that Bijan Robinson is a running back that has a shot at winning the MVP this year, which I find to be interesting because I think in order for a running back to get serious consideration for MVP, they got to go over 1,000 yards receiving. Like, you're going to have to hit 1,000 yards in 18 weeks you should be able to do that if you're even a modestly talented running back. But Tor, you're gonna have to catch 80 balls. It's gonna have to be a Herculean Sisyphus pushing the boulder up a hill type effort to get past the quarterbacks. Kirk Cousins is there. I know everyone was going crazy about Penix in the preseason, but Cousins throws to backs. Cousins checks down. Like you should be getting way more opportunities through the air. 58 receptions last year for this kid. Does 8 seem a little low to you?
I personally like 8 for a second-year running back that was on a very bad team last year, juicing up a team before they've even a new team before they set foot on the field. That's kind of my. I don't look at preseason predictions like that. I'm fine. I'm comfortable with 8. I think he's talented enough to be top 10 consideration. We saw the shiftiness last year. It looked at times otherworldly, and then the burst is good too. So keep him healthy, keep him upright. But if he's going to be in an MVP consideration, it would almost have to be like you're saying 1,000 or 1,800 with 18 touchdowns. Like there can't be any room for doubt within a MVP running back season.
Gibbs is also both these backs in kind of that thunder and lightning running back by committee type of a bit, which I think there's enough for them to eat in Detroit for both Gibbs and Montgomery. I don't like that. If again, we're going back to a selfish fantasy perspective. Again, this is MJD's list. Raheem Mostert in Miami. I mean, any running back is able to stay on the field in Miami should definitely be in your top 10 list. He's got him at number 6. Saquon Barkley at 5. If I was going to make a list tour of 3 guys I thought could potentially win the MVP this year at the running back position, I think Saquon might be on there just because if it hits, if Jalen Hurts, he's got a new look on life, his reports came out today, and if he's able to fit into that offense with all the different looks they can give with a mobile quarterback and in the red zone, I mean, he looked good for one of the worst teams in the league. You could see him having 15, 16 touchdowns combined through the air and rushing. I'm not expecting that from the Eagles. I think something is systematically wrong at the top with that head coach. But if I was going to make a list and say these are the guys I think could do it, I probably would put Saquon on that list.
I think that gambling on a reinvigorated Saquon Barkley in Philadelphia, that's something that doesn't seem outlandish or outrageous to me. He's a supreme athlete at the running back position. I mean, stack him up against anybody. I think you could make an argument that he does this better, does B better, whatever it is. So if the wheels fall off in Philly, then at least this year you have Saquon Barkley to hand the ball off to or to dump it off to. He could end up with 60 catches this year. He could end up with 200 rushes this year. And with that amount, with that clip, with that offensive line, I mean, he got dealt travesties at the front 5 in New York. Every year it was travesties, whether if it was guys getting hurt, they were signing old offensive tackles they couldn't run block. Philly is not that. They take pride up front, and I think he could have a big year just strictly on the rushing standpoint.
Moisture's 32, and that backfield has got a lot of talent in it in Miami. So I'll think he'll still get opportunities to begin with, but maybe some of those younger backs moving forward, this could be the year where that potentially changes. All right, 4 and 3, Kyren Williams and Breece Hall. I think Breece Hall is probably, I don't want to say the most overhyped because he's a great back, and I think that him playing well on that gong show. You and I spent a lot of time talking about the Jets not rolling over and just playing dead after Aaron Rodgers went down. They were in some tough games. They won some games they shouldn't, and Breece Hall is one of those dudes that can hit the hole, and he's 80 yards up the field before you turn around. So I don't hate him being this high on the list. Kyren Williams, I think McVay showed us what they're going to do last year. They're going to run the football down people's throats. And I love this. I love the fact that it's a pass-first league and we're going 5 wide in the red zone. No. We're dealing with checkers and chess guys. And the chess guys realize there's opportunities to pound the football despite what my reputation thinks. And I think the Rams are going to continue to run the shit out of the ball.
Yeah, Kyren came out of the blue last year. And then all year I'm sitting here, why am I getting torched? What is keeping, who is this? Because the running backs in Los Angeles have been injury central, which is unfortunate, but it's next man up. And they found a guy that wasn't going down 12 games over 1,200 yards through scrimmage. That's great. If you're a running back averaging over 100 yards per game, your team is going to win more games. No matter how you get it, they're going to be better. The Breece Hall situation makes me nervous, not because he's not talented, but because that backfield is loaded. Braylon Allen from Wisconsin, rookie, shows a really good first game in the preseason. Isaiah Davis, rookie, he showed I think he's going to get more work than expected. And then Abinaconda is still on the team, and he stepped up in like week 15 to 17 last season, getting a couple, I think, 2 touchdown games, or at least a touchdown. So they're not. It's not just going to be the Breece Hall show. I think they're going to keep the fresh legs in the backfield.
I'm with you. That's not at all why I'm concerned. I'm concerned because I don't think Aaron Rodgers at 40 can stay healthy the entire season. And then when that happens, Tyrod Taylor is going to be better than Zach Wilson last year. We know that if he has to go in there and play football for these guys. But I think you can really key in on Breece Hall in that running attack. If that takes place, you don't have to be so worried about Garrett Wilson up top and all those other wide receivers. Mike Williams, is he 100% right now? I haven't kept up on that. I know the Jets acquired him in the offseason. Derrick Henry, number 2. You know I love King Henry. You know that they've been predicting his demise now in year 9 for the past couple of seasons. The Titans were bad last year. Bad talent, bad quarterback play, horrific offensive line play. And he still, I believe, was second in the league in rushing, average over 4 yards a carry, double-digit rushing touchdowns. And I don't know. I was actually screaming, if you were not going to believe who enlightened me on this, Wesley I was talking to Wesley the barber about it. I was like, hey, man, I think Lamar could vulture some of these touchdowns in the red zone for King Henry and not vice versa. And he said, you would be surprised how few rushing touchdowns Lamar Jackson actually had last year. And he was correct. I don't know if how many touchdowns would you assume Lamar Jackson had in 2023?
I would assume Lamar Jackson had like 9 rushing touchdowns.
Sure.
About 1 every other game.
Yeah, I'd assume that too. And that's why it's very interesting when you look and he has like 3 rushing touchdowns one season, 4 rushing touchdowns another season. He runs the ball in between the 20s, I guess. But once they get down to the red zone, they had sledgehammers. They got Gus Edwards. They got guys like that can get the ball over the goal line. So it actually doesn't happen as much as you think. I didn't know that until yesterday, talking to an idiotic barber from Frederick, Maryland. And I think Derrick Henry was healthy all last season as well. And nobody preps harder than this motherfucker. Like, no one's going to work out harder than this guy. So I see what you're saying, having him all the way up at 2. And then just based on what he's accomplished, I don't hate it. But I don't know. I think it's possible that some other guys could be there. And then, of course, McCaffrey, 1 overall. Are you as bullish on Derrick Henry in Baltimore as you were when he signed there?
Not. Baltimore just scares me because I feel like they last year showed how easily they can lose themselves with whatever, getting too cute with the game plan. But with a strictly ranking standpoint, Derrick Henry at 2, I'm comfortable with. Show me someone. Who else would you put? Who else would I put there? It's Derrick Henry's spot. That's what he does. He's big. He's still fast. He's still going to score a bunch of touchdowns. It makes sense. There's nobody good enough behind him where an argument would sway me to say, oh no, not okay. Put Derrick Henry at 5. It would be a very contentious debate between Saquon Barkley or Derrick Henry at the 2 position. I would still lean Henry because he gets injured less.
Yeah, McCaffrey being 1 is pretty obvious. I don't know if Christian McCaffrey can have another almost 350 touch performance and make it through as much of the season as he did last year. And Tori, it wasn't just him getting those touches. There was weeks on end where nothing was working and they went to him and they said, look, you're going to have to put us on your back and carry us to victory. And maybe he's paid again. He takes care of himself, but he's missed big portions of his career in the past. I don't like running backs turning in that level of performance, being able to duplicate it on a regular basis in this league with the wear and tear.
It's so different because McCaffrey last season turned it into almost like a quarterback's role of picking the team up, getting the offense going, but it's a running back position. You're getting hit every single play. And the quarterback, sometimes you get the ball out quickly. You have more longevity. It's just the science and the nature of football. So rooting on a running back or rooting for a running back to pick up that same role, to be the guy to bring the team up from the depths of hell, that's tough. Quarterbacks, it should be their duty, and then the running back should be complementary or focal point of the offense. It shouldn't be, hey, we need you to just go beast mode right now and figure it out like you did in the play. Like some of those receptions he had in the playoffs where he just took the ball, should have been tackled for 3 yards, took 6 more hits and scored a touchdown. It should be back. It should be the other way around. Okay, you get your 5-yard rush, and then the quarterback makes a beautiful throw in the back of the end zone. Not, we need a crazy play from this guy every single drive.
Lamar Jackson had 5 rushing touchdowns last year. Let me correct myself. Not bad. And also, if you're in a league, I don't do points. I don't do PPR, but I think most leagues do rushing touchdowns or 6, passing touchdowns or 4. So Josh Allen is just a vastly more valuable fantasy quarterback. I don't think he's more valuable on the field than Lamar Jackson is, but if we're talking about it from a selfish perspective. All right. The mayor of Knox County, who's had some success dabbling in professional wrestling as well, wants to talk some volunteer football with us. So we're going to make that happen next on Both Types of Sports.
Both types of sports with Schoode and Tor. Football discussion on the internet.
It is Both Types of Sports. Chad Dukes here. Radio's Gigantor there. And in the third square, he used to beat up people for a living. Now he protects their freedom. You can follow him on X, Glenn Jacobs, TN, the mayor of Knox County. Mr. Glenn Jacobs joins us on the program. Mr. Mayor, is it all right if I call you Glenn? Thank you so much for the time today.
No, I mean, I get called a lot worse than my real name, so that'd be great. And also, I hadn't thought about this before, but now I can't get like Hollywood squares out of my mind, right? With
sure,
all of us in different squares like this. Yes,
you're the third square, which I don't remember how the seating went. Probably center square, of course, was the 1 seat.
Yeah,
correct?
yeah. And it was like tic tac toe. They had 9 around, a total there. So
you ever want to?
Is the third square good, or is that like? I don't know. Is that like a third wheel on a date or something like that? I don't know.
No. On our show, it's clearly the best square. And also my producer / co-host is 26, so he has no idea what we're talking about right now.
What is Hollywood Squares?
First of all, I wanted to say congratulations. How lucky is it to be an elected official in a state that now has multiple Buc-ee's that have opened?
Amazing. I mean, you go to the west of Knoxville and there's a Buc-ee's. You go to the east of Knoxville, there's a Buc-ee's. I mean, literally just slices of heaven on either side now.
Well, it's also like when they set up, I don't know how, well, they pay really well. They pay their managers well. The training's good, but I feel like customer service everywhere across our country, unfortunately, has regressed over the years. And Buc-ee's, that's the opposite. Like, not only do they employ waves of people when they come to town, but everybody's nice. And when you get those big institutions like, I don't know, Walmart or Target, sometimes that's not always the case.
Yeah, there's a small chain of True Value hardware stores in our area called Elders, and they're amazing because, and I love the big box stores, for my home improvement projects.
Sure, of course.
Nevertheless, when you go into Elders, I literally have to tell them, quit asking me if I need anything because you're like the 5th person. So thank you very much. But of course you go to some stores and you can be there for half an hour and no one ever comes up to you. Yeah. I tend then to patronize those places because that customer service, it's still important. And as you're saying, many times it's kind of lost nowadays, which is
I agree.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to Weigel? It's a convenience store.
Weigel, yes.
Weigel.
They started here. That was Bill Weigel started that. His family had a dairy and they started in the milk industry and delivering milk, and then got into gas stations and convenience stores. And now they have a huge footprint across East Tennessee.
I love them, and they're so. Tor, first of all, you'd love it. They have flavored milk, so they'll do like peanut butter cup milks and chocolate malt milks. But they also have meatloaf sandwiches in the little foil wrap. I mean, Glenn's abs up to his neck. I doubt he can relate, but they put the foil.
I like to eat now.
Well, I just saw a tweet from you where you're like, "Oh, this low sugar thing's working out pretty good," and you had veins in your bicep the size of my quadricep. I was very intimidated.
Thank you very much. I don't do that kind of dieting all the time. I should actually. I always have my best results when I go on very low carb. But
sure.
And the people at Weigel's, they also are very involved in our community. They do some really good stuff within the community as well. So we're incredibly fortunate here in East Tennessee to have so many great individuals and great companies that help us out in all different sorts of ways.
I know you're a big Vols fan. Tor's a big college football fan. I want to talk about some of that with you. I had some questions about the stadium in Nashville, Nashville's just, my God, if you want to talk about one of the fastest growing cities in the world. But as a fan of yours in your former profession for as long as I can remember, it's really cool to see. Like, I understand when you're at a convention or whatever, and our politics, you and I chew a lot of the same dirt, but I like everyone to feel comfortable watching this show, so I try not to make it political. But I love seeing you at like small business openings, and here I'm speaking at this grade school, and hey, we're doing school supply drives, and you're not sending an emissary, you're standing out there meeting with everybody. And I feel like you're online the way I'm online, and you see how vicious it can be and how vicious sometimes you have to be fighting fire with fire. But does it give you a sense of, wow, the world is still, and especially where I live, is still pretty great, going out and being in these small areas with these small businesses and in schools with kids? It looks very rewarding. It certainly is rewarding seeing you go out there and do it.
Well, thank you very much for saying that. I think when all of us step offline and into the real world, we realize that there really are two different places, right? And, if you're on Twitter or Facebook and there's all this abuse coming from everywhere, frankly, and then when you get to talk to people face to face and you realize, wait a second, we're a lot more alike than we are disalike. And don't get me wrong, I love social media. I think it's very constructive in many ways. But one of the detriments of social media is it really encourages tribalism, right? Mm-hmm. I follow people that I agree with. I like stuff that I agree with. I tend to ignore the things that I don't agree with, and I don't like the stuff that I don't agree with. So what am I going to do if I want a bigger social media platform? Is I'm going to put out the stuff that I know my people are going to agree with, and attack the people that don't agree with that. So in that way, it is somewhat detrimental because it really divides us so much. And, as you said, there's always going to be differences among people. I mean, I have friends that I do not agree with at all politically, but there is some stuff that we do agree on. And if we can concentrate on those things and just leave the politics out, great. And then the amazing thing, though, is like when we start talking, we find out we probably agree on more than we think we do. And then we can actually start talking about the political stuff because we've built enough of a rapport, that everybody's comfortable talking about that because we're no longer enemies. And, so much of the time now we come at things as enemies instead of friends that might have a disagreement about something. And unfortunately, again, I just think that so much of our online world now is focused on that, and it really does cause a lot of division within society.
Pat Tillman is the extreme example of, I'm going to walk away from something that I am really good at that pays me a lot of money, and I'm going to go do something selfless. And I don't like comparing people to Pat Tillman, so I don't want you to feel like I'm over flattering you, but you established yourself in a career where you can't really get any higher. I mean, the championships and the pay-per-views and the television, everyone knows. There is no one that doesn't know who you are that's, of a certain age and under. And it's very easy to just say, I got a Legends contract. I can go to signings. I'll pop up every once in a while, choke slam, tombstone. Everyone's going to go crazy. You decided to, do this, and you're opening yourself up. I saw a picture of you standing next to a sign someone put in their front yard that said, like, the wrestling mayor is an idiot. And you're like, I believe in free speech. This is something I believe in. Like, you've opened yourself up to an enormous amount of criticism that you didn't have to. And I assume it's just because you feel a calling for public service. When you were wrestling with that, how long did you know that you wanted to do this? And then what was that process like with your family and with your coworkers? It must have been difficult.
Really, it wasn't. I'm one of those people, when I decide to do something, that's what I'm going to do. So I never really wanted actually to get involved in politics and government. I'd always been interested because it has such a big impact in our life. But I never wanted to be an elected official. Then I decided that, look, being on the outside and complaining about things is great, but it doesn't really change anything. So I wanted to do something I felt was constructive. And I grew up on a farm in Missouri. My family didn't have a whole lot when I was growing up. And from there, I was able to travel the world and do all these amazing things. Been super blessed, been able to provide my family with a life that I would never have envisioned when I was a kid. And the reason for that, in my opinion, is because in this country, you have the freedom to utilize your gifts and skills. And once you figure out how to do that, and once you figure out a way, and it's all about benefiting other people, right, in the market. And once you figure out how to do that and start becoming successful and are willing to work hard, there's literally nothing, there's no glass ceiling in America. And I'm saying that as someone who's experienced it myself. I'm a product of the American dream. So for me, I just want to make sure that my kids, my grandkids, have similar opportunities, have the opportunity to build their own version of the American dream. So that's really why I got into it. Knew that my wrestling career was coming to an end.
Sure.
And for practical purposes, my predecessor, Tim Burchett, who is a friend of mine, he's now Congressman Tim Burchett, but he was term limited, so we have an open seat. And it was kind of just a perfect storm. Those don't come along very often in politics. It's very difficult to beat an incumbent. So when you have an open seat, if you want to go, that's the time to go. And I was just personally in a situation where I felt that I could do that, and it was important to me. So things turned out well. Now there are times that I say that I had a temporary lapse of sanity, and my life was going really well, and I decided to do this. But that you also get that intrinsic reward if you do feel like you're contributing to your community and you're having an influence on which way your community goes, and you are making a difference, right? And all those things are important to me as well.
It's got to be. What's the you say you put your mind to something. Is it you want to represent the state at a national level? Is it continue to work locally? Like, where is the goal line?
I haven't made that decision yet where I go next, or if I stay in politics. I don't know. I am term limited, so in 2 years, I will be out as Knox County mayor, and I just have to I have ideas about things that I might want to do, but at the same time, so much. I always say that I don't really plan my life out, because I find that every time that I have a plan, it's like Mike Tyson, life punches me in the mouth and the plan changes. So for me, it's just kind of figuring, okay, this would be something I might be good at, something I want to do, something where if it's public service, where I feel that my talents and tools would be most beneficial, but also just what opportunities end up popping up along the way, or what I create for myself. And that's something, it's kind of hard to look out years from now and say, oh, I want to do this, because a lot of things are going to change in the interim.
Sure. I'm sorry, Tor. I know you like football, and this is a football show. Please ask the volunteers question.
Yeah, I guess one of the biggest teams in the state, if not the biggest, the Tennessee Volunteers, the Football Power Index, which I find to be a loathsome analytic device. They do have the Vols at a 36.9% chance of making the new CFP this season. Do you like those odds? Do you think they can crack the top 12 and compete?
I do. I think Nico is a great player. Josh Heupel's amazing. Everybody thought that he was just going to be like the super high-powered offense and score a lot of points against them, and that has not been the case. I mean, Heupel obviously is an offensive genius, and talk like that. UT is quickly becoming slot receiver U, because we just have all these great, weight wide receivers in the slot, and everything is balanced. The game plan really relies on that so much. But then you got a guy like James Pierce, who he's going to be a lottery pick in the NFL draft this year. Yeah. And then you watch some of the games too, where it was not last season. Heupel, and this is a sign of a great coach, altered his game plan based on the players and based on the situation. All too often coaches, this is how we're going to play, no matter what, this is what we're going to do. Heupel understands that this is going to work. This is our bread and butter. This works, but it may not work in this situation. So who would have thought that at points during last season, you would see Josh Heupel relying on his defense and the run game as UT head football coach, right? A couple years ago, no one would have ever thought that's possible. So I think they have the talent And I think they have the coaching that, yes, I think this is one of those years like last year. I mean, we all thought if they got 9 wins, that would be a successful season. They achieved that. A lot of people were disappointed because they thought they could do more. But frankly, realistically, that was good. I think this year is a year where, okay, you look at 9 wins and they certainly can achieve that. But I think the upside this year is a lot higher. I think they are going to surprise people. I think that they're going to be better than they are currently ranked by the end of the season.
I pulled this quote because, to your point, both of your points, Kirby Smart is in Georgia kind of downplaying the fact, like, they're favorites, right? Like, everybody knows what Georgia's capable of, but he's not speaking that way. This is a quote from Josh Heupel. "We've got, without a doubt, the best and deepest roster we've ever had. We've had to navigate some really unique circumstances. We've never given ourselves an out, but we're at the best point we've been at, and it's not even close." Yeah. Do you like when, I mean, bravado and, being over the top was something that you're familiar with at times in your career, sir. When you have a head coach that comes out and says things like that before a season, is that something or do you like, even if it's just a facade going out there with that underdog role?
I don't think it is actually. With Heupel, I think he calls it like he sees it. I don't think he does engage in some of the games that other coaches might do. And you can just see it. I mean, yes, they are talented. That again, what's wild to me is the defensive line is probably going to be the really anchor of the team, which you wouldn't think of with the Josh Heupel team. But here's the deal: we all know that how good Josh Heupel is on the offensive side of the ball.
Sure.
So if you have a great defense and you have Josh Heupel, basically running the helm on the offense, I mean, that's going to be a very good team. And again, Nico is a very smart player. He's going to fit into that scheme very well. It's not just the athletic ability with the quarterback now at University of Tennessee. They have to be very intelligent football players as far as making reads, making quick decisions, and doing all those sort of things, and going down their checklist very quickly. Nico can do that. And that's going to be another difference. Joe Milton, great arm, but not the most accurate arm in the world. Nico's a little different. I think, you're going to see a throwback to Hendon Hooker, who was another one that, had the great accuracy, great athlete, great football IQ, could make those checks and just bam, 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 bam. That's why they were so successful a couple of years ago. And I think we'll be back there at quarterback with Nico. Then you throw in a superior defense. Whew, that's a scary combination.
Did you see Joe Milton? I know, Tor, sorry, I don't mean to step on you, but we were all steamed up with his performance in the preseason game for the Patriots. He's running all over, and then he showed the laser rocket arm down the seam. I don't know. I had Ben Volin from the Boston Globe on the show this week, Mr. Bear, and they said he's playing way better than Drake May at this point, and the entire team knows it. The entire audience knows it. I can't wait to see if they figure out a way to get him some playing time at the next level.
I mean, that dude, he can throw it 70 yards off his back foot, no effort. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And he, again, he's another one. I don't ever think he got in his rhythm at UT for whatever reason, because obviously the potential was there. But I think maybe with an NFL team where you're making, especially some longer throws and those sort of things, I think that he'll really thrive in the NFL. And if you're just looking at pure athleticism, pure arm strength, I don't think anyone can touch that guy.
Glenn, week 4, Tennessee gets one of the newcomers to the SEC. They play Oklahoma. How do you think the reception is going to be, not only for them in that game, but for Texas as well in the SEC? Personally,
yes. Yeah, so a few years ago, Oklahoma played UT here at UT. Jim Ross is a huge Oklahoma fan, right? So he's on the sidelines, and like the first play of the game, I think Oklahoma fumbled or something, but UT's got the ball at like the 3-yard line, and then they kicked the field goal. And I was like, man, if they'd have scored a touchdown, this game would have been over before it started. But it was one of those deals where the field goal actually felt like it gave momentum back to Oklahoma, so I couldn't give JR a hard time. If they'd have scored a touchdown, I was like, boy, it is on. But I was like, this game's going to be tight. And I think it's going to be the same going forward with them. And then, of course, you have Texas. So, my brother, the Undertaker, lives in Austin. Mark Henry is a University of Texas guy. And I'll say UT, and these guys are like Texas. And I'm like, no. The original UT, the University of Tennessee. But the thing about the SEC is it is just such high quality of football. I mean, you sometimes watch the SEC and you're thinking a lot of these guys can be playing like, in a weaker division of the NFL and be competitive, right? So it's just completely different than almost every other conference in the country. The Big Ten's close, but I think top to bottom, the SEC is just the power conference. And when you add teams like Oklahoma and teams like Texas that are really good teams, but are, they're among the blue bloods of college football, it doesn't do anything but help all of us. Makes things more difficult on the one hand, because again, just getting to the SEC championship game now is a big deal. But all the games are competitive. And it just helps all of us when the conference rises.
Do you think the transfer portal and the NIL era and all this stuff that we're dealing with now, though, it does seem to benefit teams that have emphasized culture and emphasized their community? And I feel like that's what Heupel's built for the Volunteers, is that you need to be a good fit if you're going to come here. The success, you can go to a lot of these teams and get all of these different bonuses now, but I don't know. I don't know if it's created parity universally yet, but it feels like we're moving in that direction. I was very dubious about the changes now and what effect they were going to have on the sport at this level, Glenn. But I do think eventually it's going to be a good thing, especially when the kids are finally getting paid.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you on that. The whole amateur status, and it becomes very difficult when you see the amount of money that's flowing into college football and college basketball. And it always struck me as unfair that the one group that wasn't making any money were the players.
Sure.
Right. I mean, you got the broadcasters are making money, the coaches are making a lot of money, the universities are making a lot of money. But the players are the ones that are actually out there with the product, and they don't make that much. I mean, yes, they get a college education, but when you see tens of millions of dollars flowing through, it just didn't seem fair that they couldn't partake in that. So I'm glad that happened. I think there's still some issues that have to be worked out. I'm not a fan of the NCAA.
Neither am I.
What they've tried to do, and of course, UT sued them and won and said, hey, you can't retroactively apply these rules. And basically, the NCAA got caught with their pants down. They weren't ready for all this. We all knew that NIL was coming, and they acted like, oh, this is something brand new. Right. Guys, it's been on the horizon for years. And then, the transfer portal as well. That's another thing. I'm always like, oh, wait a second. If you're a coach and you go to another school, okay, you don't have to sit out a year. You don't have to do any of those things. In many cases, if you get fired, you get a buyout. And that's true even if you have recruiting violations or whatever. You go to a different school, but then they sanction the school and they sanction the kids that are still there. Or if you're going to go to transfer, you'd have to sit out a year. And just again, that just didn't strike me as fair. So I'm glad that a lot of these things they have a lot more leniency in what they're doing. And I agree with you. I think that ultimately the teams with the better culture will benefit because, look, I mean, you have a lot more ability to move around. It's not just, Alabama with their tremendous legacy that they have there. Recruiting now, you have opportunities to attract players in different ways. And one of those ways, I think, is actually the culture of the place. And you're going to enjoy coming here and playing here, and you should stay here. And I think that added competition is also good for everybody.
Bussing with the Boys is based in Tennessee. Have you thought about buying a bus and doing your own podcast, sir? I mean, this is knowledge beyond just being a college football fan. It sounds like you could host your own couple hours a week.
I'll leave that to the professionals, but thank you.
No problem. I did want to get all of our thoughts on these. They announced them a couple months back, but the uniforms, the smoky gray uniforms representing the Smoky Mountains, which are just fantastic tour if you've never been there. I think these are some of the sharpest. There's east, west, and central Tennessee.
Yep.
The three stars represent.
Yeah, the three grand divisions of Tennessee. That's
there
correct.
You go. I mean, I just think these are some sharp uniforms in an era where the Indianapolis Colts wanted to ruin all of football uniforms for everybody for the rest of the time. What do you guys think about these?
Oh, I love it. Yeah. What's really cool is also, they have like the blackout uniforms and they have the different uniforms for special occasions. I'm always going to be partial to the orange and white because that's kind of what I grew up on since I've been here in Knoxville. But yeah, the smoky grays, really cool. Really cool.
You like them, Tor?
They're sharp. Anything referencing the Smoky Mountains is great. One of my grandfathers is sitting in a mausoleum pointed towards the Smoky Mountains.
Is he really?
So, yeah. So it's always
cool
it always touches home seeing that. So it's they're good looking uniforms for sure.
I know you're more of a college ball fan, Mr. Mayor, but I did want to. This is the live cam on the new Titan Stadium, Nissan Stadium in Nashville. I've been to that stadium many times. I've never performed in that stadium, unlike other people in this room. The building itself is going to be enormous. I saw some of the renders, but Garth Brooks is going to be able to perform live in Nashville now in February. When you put a roof on a building, I think it takes some of the splendor away from football. Tor and I kind of agree that there's cities in this country, Pittsburgh, Buffalo. I would put Minnesota in there. I'd rather there not be. Lambeau should never have a roof on the building, but in Nashville, I just feel like you have to. There's too much money. There's too much growth. The music industry's so big. Do you think you'll get a chance to go over there and see the construction? And what do you think about them building a new building for the Titans?
Yeah, Nashville has become a world-class tourist destination. I mean, there's just so many things going on there. And as you mentioned, I think the difference is this will be multi-use. This is not just a football stadium. I mean, they'll have all sorts of stuff in it. They've talked about, obviously, the SEC basketball championships, perhaps the Final Four, the Super Bowl at some point, and for those type of things, you need an all-weather stadium. So I think part of the reason that they went with that design is so it can be multi-purpose. And as you said, not just, have the weather rain out Garth Brooks. We've had Garth Brooks here in Knoxville. He was at Neyland Stadium. We get 102,000 people at that.
Wow.
Morgan Wallen is coming here at the end of September. And again, we'll have 102,000 people, which is great. And that's little Knoxville. So imagine what they're going to be able to do in Nashville once they get this new stadium up. And the design is not just the stadium, it's also basically a ginormous entertainment district there in Nashville. So it's pretty exciting to see what they're doing over there.
What's it been like to be an elected official with the population explosion that your state is going through? I mean, you just have people migrating from not just the South, not just the Midwest, all over the country to Tennessee. What is it like trying to be a part of managing that?
Yeah, it's twofold. On the one hand, it's great because the reason that people are coming here is because we're a great place to live, right? And to me, that is just verification that this is a wonderful place, and there's no other place I'd rather live. On the other hand, it does cause some issues as far as the local government when we're talking about things like roads and schools and other kind of infrastructure. It does put a strain on all that. But I also look at it as an opportunity. I mean, if you've been around the country and to places that are losing folks, for instance, in the Rust Belt, it's a pretty depressing area, when you see everything boarded up and people leaving. So I'd much rather be the place where people are coming to than the place where people are leaving from. And for like economic opportunity and those sort of things, I mean, that's one of the things I look at and I get really excited about, because the people that are coming here, how are they going to use their talents and their gifts, and entrepreneurs, what kind of businesses are they going to build? All those things are net positives. The downside is as a local government, we're the people that are responsible for the roads and things like that, and that can be problematic at times. It can just put a lot of strain on things.
All right, we my producer / co-host host a college football podcast. We are big fans of yours, big fans of the state. 3 of us at a Volunteers game. You name the date, Mayor. We're going to go there. We're going to have a great time. Turkey legs on us. It's going to be a hoot. You just say the date. We'll be there.
And I think the one this year, the home game, is Alabama. And if they can top the game from 2-3 years ago, that was arguably the greatest college football game ever, that would be the game that I would be at for sure.
What's the tailgating like for Alabama, Tennessee?
Oh, huge, man! All the tailgating's huge here in Knoxville and the UT campus. It's amazing.
I don't think I'd leave it alive is the only problem. I just don't think I can control myself enough with the indulgence level I know I'm capable of in that type of environment to walk out of there.
Yeah, and you know what's really cool about college football is just the pageantry and the tradition. You come to a UT game and you have the Pride of the Southland band, and they're as impressive as the football team generally as far as their routine and the choreography that goes along with that. And you have the team running through the band. You get the fireworks going off and the cheerleaders doing push-ups in the end zone after every score. It's just the environment is just over the top, and it's unlike anything I've seen at any other sporting event.
I promised myself I wouldn't now. Well, one last question. I promised I wouldn't ask any wrestling questions, but you mentioned the outdoor buildings. What is the best wrestling outdoors experience that you can remember in your career?
Oh gosh. And I tend to be like you guys. I always liked arenas better than stadiums because the arenas were much more intimate, and in the stadium, the noise would just leave. It would go at the top and it would be gone. In an arena, when the crowd got into it, I mean, it was loud. And in the stadium, the crowd gets into it. And, I remember being at the Georgia Dome, and granted, I mean, it is inside, but it was such a big building. We had 30,000 people in it. I'm like, I swear I could hear a pin drop in the game. And I look out there and I can see people, their mouths are moving, but they were so far away, and and there was open air. So much of it, they just did not sound like they're making any noise. Two, and I don't know if this counts or not, AT&T Stadium where the Cowboys. And that was just unbelievable. Now that one is a dome, right?
It's got a retractable roof.
I don't remember if we had it open or not. I just remember walking out and I was like, good Lord. There's a lot of people out here, and they have that giant jumbotron that goes the entire length of the football field, and it was amazing. So that one was really cool. And then also we did MetLife Stadium in New York, New Jersey at the Meadowlands. And that was really cool setup. They had like the Statue of Liberty up over the ring and all this cool stuff. That one was late. It was cold though. It was April in New York, so they had like heaters around ringside and stuff. But yeah, those would be the two coolest ones I think that I've been involved with.
Taking a bump that time of year in New Jersey, I can't even imagine what that body feels like.
It's going to shatter.
Hopefully, it was a squash match, and you were on the winning side of that one for you, my friend. Mr. Merritt, what a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for talking football with you. Would love to revisit with you once the season is in full swing, and hopefully the Volunteers are rolling.
That's right. Thanks, guys, and go Vols.